Welcome! This video contains an introduction, an interview so you can gain deeper understanding of the subject from spirit level, and a group frequency calibration so you can start to clear the frequency distortion patterns around this topic. Enjoy! Hi everyone, this is Karen Cheong, and I'm here with my co-host Dennis Kelly. Have you noticed you often feel like you have to give up something, and sometimes a lot of it, like your energy, emotional or mental well-being, or your attention in order to receive something else, such as money, job or relationship security, recognition, etc.? Why is that? Today we're going to be discussing the invisible, pervasive distortion pattern of spiritual debt, what it is, how it keeps you stuck, and how you can start to break free. After the discussion, we're going to wrap it up with a group frequency calibration to help to begin to release the distortion patterns around this topic. So let's get started. Dennis?
Well, Karen, I have to start with just a extremely very basic question. When you say spiritual debt, I'm not quite sure exactly what are you talking about.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to back up even further out of your question. I haven't even started talking yet. So what I'm going to say is spirit debt is something that runs through all humans. Okay, it's something that we are born into. But first I'm going to talk about debt as it occurs in our consciousness right now, and then extrapolate from there into spirit debt. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Yeah. Cool. So in terms of debt, so I've mentioned this before in the episode on what hides in plain sight. So if you haven't watched that, go ahead and watch that. But in that, I mentioned that debt is the currency of oppression. Okay, so because we are consumers and we want what we think we want, right? So whether you're a student and you need to pay your tuition, whether you want to start a business and you need a loan, or whether you just want to buy something personally or for your children or whoever, we enroll in debt, right? We avail ourselves of debt. And this really started to happen in North America really a lot in the 80s in a really pervasive way. And it's interesting because when we start to consume more at this level and take on more and more debt, it was a voluntary stepping into a greater level of oppression, because we weren't thinking, gee, I'm now in an abusive situation where the percentage of interest that I owe is usually in the double digits, and it's going to take me a really long time potentially to pay off not only what I originally owed, but all this interest. I'm just focused on my interest payments or whatever it is. Okay, so we don't realize that we step into a power dynamic that is really abusive. Okay, where it's almost impossible to get yourself out of once you get into it, especially when you get to a certain tipping point. Very difficult to get out of. So that's what I mean by debt is the currency of oppression. Okay, now, and this happens not just, of course, in North America. It just happens, across the world. So spirit debt is somewhat similar in the sense that except it's less voluntary. So I'm just going to move this microphone just a little bit because I think I'm hitting it in a way that might be not great for the recording. So in any case, spirit debt is something, like I said, that is less voluntary, and it's something that we're kind of born into because we enter this consciousness realm. And the reason we enter this is because oppression is so rife within this consciousness level. Okay, it just is. And so therefore, part of what we come into is this distortion pattern of spirit debt, which is when you have to give up a lot of something in order to get a small amount of something else. So what I mean by giving up a lot of something, that would be like your life force, your energy, your emotional or mental well-being, your time, your focus, your attention, in order to get a small amount of something else. Usually it's something like money or security within a relationship or even income or a job. Or it could even be recognition, okay, something like this. So you give up a lot in order to get a little something. And the more that you continue in time, the more you have to give in order to get that small thing. So that's what I mean by spirit debt. And because it's so pervasive, it's something that can really bind us. Okay, it binds the opportunities, your possibilities. You can't really get out of it. Do you see what I'm saying? Like if you always think without realizing why you're thinking it, or just being in it because you don't know that it's entrapping you, that you're trapped in it, then do you see what I'm saying? You're always going to be in a downward spiral. You can't really get out of this pattern, which will allow you to break free and have forward momentum. Does that make sense? So that's what I mean by spirit debt.
So this sounds pretty frustrating, Karen, is because, what I heard you say is that basically we're born into this environment. And from a very young age, we just kind of work our way through the system. And the system is set up such that you kind of have to sacrifice part of yourself, part of your essence for the sake of getting something in return. And so that's the name of the game.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't really matter what class you're in, right? So even somebody very wealthy, for example, because when we think of debt, we think of usually people who are disempowered, who don't have money, right? I'm talking about spiritual debt. So even if you, for example, are come from what we would consider to be a privileged class, where you have a lot of money, you might not have to give up all that stuff for money, but you might have to get it in terms of to get recognition from your peers, love from others, feeling self-confident. Do you see what I'm saying? Feeling worthy, all that sort of stuff. So it's not necessarily that you get money from it, but you get like security in a relationship from it. So it's not, because I'm trying to divorce the idea from money. So, but you're right, it is very binding, and it is something that's invisible, because most distortion patterns have what I call like a trigger or like a footprint. So usually there's like an emotional or like a mental indicator of the distortion pattern, right? So if you have low self-worth, you have negative self-talk, or you feel kind of crappy about yourself. So you have this experience on a mental and emotional level of that distortion pattern of low self-worth. But for spiritual debt, it's blank. There's no emotional or mental trigger. So you don't even know that it's running. It's just there running through the consciousness, and therefore it's a distortion patterns that we as humans are running. We don't even know it's there. We don't even know how to get rid of it because we can't sense it. It's like do you see what I'm saying? It's invisible to us. We can't see it. So it's very much what I called it a stranglehold, is because it really is hugely binding. But yet we can't see it.
So I don't want you to leave me here, Karen, because here again, I understand what you're saying, and that this is the nature of the life that we live, and it happens over time, and we're kind of all part of this. But when you talk about these distortions and this impact on who I am, is there truly some way, as we move through this new world environment, is there some way to kind of change course?
Absolutely, yeah. And before I answer that, what I'll mention is your lineage was impacted by this. So were the cultures that form the distortion patterns that create you, so too the religions, right? So all those things have that running through them, this idea of spirit debt, right? So it's in everything. So of course, you as an individual being impacted by all these distortion patterns feel it on all these different levels, right? It's not just individual. I just want to make that very clear. It's also you're feeling it run through your lineage. It's running through culture. It's running through religion. It's like running everywhere. That's what I mean. It's so insidious. So to get to the answer to your question, how do you change it? Well, the only way I know of how to change it is, first of all, to be aware of it, and secondly, through frequency work. So this is, I want to make this very clear. This is a foundational distortion pattern. Foundational. This is at the global setting of human. It's in our DNA. So what do I mean by the global setting of human? So, and we may have mentioned this before, Dennis, in the past. So for those of you who know this, bear with me. So we are like computer programs. We are like renderings. Are what we think of as our bodies and our physical realities are simply renderings. It's an illusion. So, and we're running like programs. And so, one of the main programs that run us, okay, is that of human. Okay, so it's like you identify first, oh, I'm human. And then underneath that would be male, female. And then there are all these subsequent ones underneath that. But that's sort of like how you identify, quote unquote, who you are. Make sense? So those settings run in the background and they form the basis of your identity, your reality, how you render who you think you are. So what I mean by at the global setting of human, it's distorted right there at that global setting of human, the very underpinning of your identification of human. That's why it's so deep in the DNA. So in part, what we're going to be doing is in the GFC at the end of this work is extremely important, that's why I'm talking about it, is to start to release this pattern of spiritual debt. This is a huge foundational distortion. And it's why in Coherence Mastery, the series that is ongoing at this moment, we are doing a class dedicated entirely to this, okay? Because it's a huge distortion for us to release. It's not like you just like one and done it and then it's out. You have to address it likely a number of times. For some of you, much fewer times, but still, it's not like a surface distortion pattern that you can release and it's gone. It shows up quite a bit because it is so, like I said, rife and at the level of human. So if you're interested in more depth on this, you can check out Coherence Mastery, where we delve into other very core, very foundational distortion patterns which prevent you from accelerating not only on spirit level, but seeing change on the physical. And Dennis has a question. I'm just going to stop. Go ahead, Dennis, what you're going to ask.
So I heard you mention foundational distortion. Yeah. And then I heard you talk about actually right down to the DNA, right down to the cellular structure of who I am. So what you're saying is that the work that needs to be done is pretty deep-seated and extremely important. Also, because of this foundational nature of this, is it extremely difficult?
I'm glad you asked that. Thank you. It's not difficult. It just requires a little more persistence on our part to release. It requires more work. It is in the sense of diligence in terms of listening to the GFCs often to release the distortion pattern. So it's not difficult in the sense of you have to do something different, but it just means that it requires probably more frequency work to get to the root of it. So to release it enough first so you start to feel like a shift, not only on spirit level, but then as you do more of it, you'll start to feel more of a shift on the physical, right? As you get deeper, and then things will start to change. Because with this running, it limits the opportunities that you get to experience. I mean, just think about it. The basic premise is, I have to give up a lot to get very little. That frames a lot and binds a lot of your possibility, right? So the possibilities out there where that paradigm doesn't exist, you don't resonate with. You can't have those possibilities because you're not in alignment with them from a frequency standpoint. It's like they're not even there in the field for you, because you have this distortion pattern running. The more you release this distortion pattern, the more the possibilities that are free of that distortion pattern are open to you.
So when I hear you say that, Karen, I get kind of excited, because if this truly is so foundational, if I do the work and if I am in a position to work with someone like yourself and to release these distortions, the impact has to be profound and very liberating.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I mean. It's a stranglehold. It's like, it's kind of like, when they talk about babies where the umbilical cord gets wrapped around their neck. before it comes out of the mom, and everyone kind of goes into panic because the child could be throttled, right, within the womb. It's kind of like that. So what we're doing is we're like, it's not like you're breaking your own umbilical cord, but you're cutting off or releasing these distortion patterns that literally have you by the neck, okay? Because I don't know if you know this, but and I think this is correct, but in martial arts, I believe they say that if you can control someone's knees, then you can control the lower part of their body. And if you control their elbows, then you control their upper. But if you control their neck, you control their whole body. So it's at the point of the neck. Okay, like this governs everything in terms of your physical reality from your body outwards to everything else. And not only that, but also the possibilities that you can exist, how you are as a creator, what you even can create, because your ability to create right now is limited by this distortion pattern. It is. Right? So you can be creating all these wonderful things, which is fantastic. Please keep doing that. And it will be limited by this distortion pattern because it's unseen. To some degree, right? So some of us are very powerful creators, and this is running less, so therefore you can still keep manifesting. However, once you've released this, just imagine like what your abilities are at that point. And for those of you who struggle more with creation manifestation, this starts to open up that ability or power within you, because you don't have this limiting you. So yes, it is a huge game changer in terms of what it is that you can create, and that's really one of the main parts of the game, is to recognize who you are as creator.
And so it has to be extremely exciting for you as you work with people and you're able to help them release these distortions so that they truly start to, develop their true essence without this stranglehold. And so it has to be profound work to see people basically come alive or awaken, or whatever term you want to use.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's really key in terms of inner strength and stability. And that's why I'm going to address it also in the stability growth, opportunity, and leadership amidst chaos. This is one of the key patterns that we're going to address. Because why? If you have this running, you're always going to feel unstable. Right? Because you have to give up so much in order to get a little bit. It's innately unstable, right? You're always in this chase on this hamster wheel. You don't feel stable at all. You feel kind of out of control. So when you release this pattern, you start to come into more of your own stability, your own inner strength, your own greater connection, or more, not connection. It's not that your connection gets greater, more, a greater awareness of your connection to pure source, because that's gone, right? So that's what I'm saying. It is, you're right, a huge game changer, and it is profound. It is amazing to see. I mean, even in myself, right? So it's not like I'm free of this either. I'm still learning. And so when I recognized this, I was like, holy moly, let's get rid of this puppy, right? It's hugely limiting. So as we step into more of what we can be as humans to release these key foundational patterns, like oppression, like spiritual debt, this allows us to embody a greater potential, because we're not limited by these distortion patterns anymore. We get to start to embody a higher level consciousness, a greater potential, which is hugely exciting.
And would you say, Karen, that the timing is perfect, that the environment that we live in currently, and with the changes that are taking place, the opportunity is golden for us to really do this work and to shift and to make these changes?
Yeah, totally. Like, this is the time. And I mean, this is not the only time. So I mean, like, if you're like, oh my God, I'm watching this later, I've missed the time. You haven't missed the time. This is just the springboard into it, that we're talking about at this particular moment. It's still ongoing, right? But this is like a huge impetus towards it.
I would assume also that because of what the nature of what we're talking about and the impact is so profound, that it certainly does take time to move through this.
Yeah, and I would say that it's going to take a few years for sure, in terms of the new consciousness coming in. And it's not like instant on. It's not like, I don't know, this time happens and if you miss it, then you're off the train and I don't know what your experience is going to be. And oh my gosh, it's not. This is just a time when we have a lot of momentum to move into this new consciousness level. And then it'll kind of like percolate through to more and more people. And people call to this work at the beginning, like the first movers, right? All you all who are listening are first movers. Surprise. So you're the ones who are leading the way because you're doing the work. The collective can follow, right? So we're all going through this. It's just that the speed at which some of us choose to move is faster or slower, depending on who you are. Whether you stay embodied or not is an altogether different conversation. However, this is a time where this is really exciting because we are starting to be able to release these distortion patterns. And even if you listen to this later, you're still doing the work for the collective, because it's not like, and for yourself, right? So I'm not saying do the work for the collective. Let me make that clear. You're not doing this because you're trying to save someone else. You're doing this for you so that you can become free. As you become free and your frequency resonance rises, what that enables for the collective to rise, because we are all one, is huge. It just, right? Because we have more freedom now in the collective and more people can entrain to that possibility and embody it themselves.
Well, I'll tell you what, this discussion has been amazing because I've never really have heard the term spiritual debt before. But then to hear the impact and how profound it is one thing. But then to actually, walk through the conversation around how we can actually release that debt and we can free ourselves, we can free our, who we are. And so that's extremely exciting. Karen, thank you very much for sharing this information.
Yeah, thank you.
Karen, could you help me? I hear so often when I look at your video or your website, GFC. Exactly what is that?
A GFC is a group frequency calibration, which looks a lot like a guided meditation on a particular topic. And what I'm doing is I'm helping you to remove the distortion patterns of that particular topic. And because you're coming together as a mastermind in a group to connect to pure source even more and to clear the distortion patterns of this particular topic, what happens is a tremendous amount of momentum starts to happen because of the energetic of the entire group. And each individual is able to move faster and ascend higher than they could have on their own.
Welcome everyone to the Group Frequency Calibration on spiritual debt. So this is a huge distortion and very rife. It's part of the human experience. So this is the beginning of the removal of this, and it won't be complete after this GFC. We will be addressing it in the online event Stability, Growth, Opportunity, and Leadership Amidst Chaos. So you can check that out as a resource, and potentially future deep dive on this. Potentially, it's not yet calendared, but it's a possibility. So let's get started. Bringing your attention, please, to your body. And as you bring your attention to your body, bringing your attention to the backs of your thighs. And as you become aware of the backs of your thighs, becoming aware of the weight that they are supporting, what they are touching, if there's any kind of tension or holding, the backs of the thighs. Good. And now becoming aware, please, of the soles of your feet. Noticing the entire sole of the foot, in addition to all the disparate parts. The pads of your toes, the ball of your foot, the arch of your foot, your heel, becoming aware of the soles of your feet. Good. And becoming aware now, please, of your breath. At first, without changing it, just being aware of it. And then after a few breaths, just noticing how they are, taking the opportunity to deepen your breath, to allow it to become more full. To become deeper, feeling not only your chest in the front of your body, but also your back, your upper back. Then also allowing it to drop into your belly. And possibly even into your lower back. Good. Becoming aware of your surroundings now, please. Becoming aware of all the sounds around you, in addition to my voice. And if you can, noticing the direction from where the sound is coming. And now, please, noticing the smells around you. Not only the ones that are a little further away, coming from under a door crack or through a window, but even those that are closer to you, like the smell of your shampoo or your laundry detergent or your lotion. Becoming aware of the smells around you. And now please triangulate, either with eyes open or closed, however works best for you. And for those of you who are new, triangulating simply means becoming aware of 3 inanimate objects in the space around you. It does not matter what they are. So meaning, once you identify each object, noticing the distance between that object and you. So let's imagine, for example, that the dresser is object A, and that's about 5 foot away from you. So notice that distance, and then feel the distance between the dresser and you. And then you're going to do the same thing for objects B and C. And as you do this, you will notice that your own sense of where you are in space clarifies, becomes more focused or more present in some way. Good. For those of you who are more practiced at this, bringing your attention to your xiphoid process, which is right at the base of your sternum, which is that big thick bone in the center of your chest, where your ribs meet in front of your body. So right at the base of your sternum, where it's a fleshy point, it's a little tender when you press on it. From that point to about an inch beneath it, directly vertically beneath it, in addition to the front of your throat. Keeping your attention on these two spots. And if it's helpful, putting a hand on each spot to keep your attention there. But if that's distracting, then don't do it. So keeping your attention on these two spots, we're going to take a nice deep breath here. Inhaling, holding your breath for a count of 5. And then whenever you have completed that hold, exhaling with some sound, pushing all the air out of your lungs, holding your breath out for a count of 5. And once you complete that, just breathe normally as we wait for the mastermind to coalesce. So for those of you who are new, please note that I work on you at the group level and the subgroup level. I often will work in silence because when I'm accessing very high frequencies, if I make physical noise, it drops the resonance, which does not help you. So know that if you don't hear me, I'm still working on you. And I also occasionally make noises. So you might hear me hum, yawn, or exhale sharply. And that's also how I remove the distortion patterns, often the lower vibrating ones. Good. Good. So now that the mastermind has coalesced, keeping our attention on those two spots, we're going to ask ourselves the following question. How can I become even more aware of my connection only to pure source? And as you ask yourself that question, please imagine, sense, feel, or become aware of the space at the center of your body. And as you become aware of this space, becoming aware of a brilliance that you either see or feel at its very core. Yeah. And because you have your attention on this brilliance, it intensifies and then begins to expand outwards through all of your cells, through your organs, through your bone structure, out through your flesh and your muscles, through the pores of your skin, into the space between your physical body and the outer perimeter of your spirit body, which is a sphere at arm's length all around you. So becoming aware of the brilliance within the sphere. Good. And now please become aware of or imagine the space all around the sphere. And as you become aware of this infinite space, I'm working on you at spirit level. To increase your frequency resonance so that this can be the most effective session possible, since it's from the highest resonating order. And also so you can integrate faster. Good. Bringing your attention now, please, to the center point of your solar plexus, which is the center point between your belly button and the base of your sternum. So the first distortion pattern that we're going to release is blindness to this pattern. Okay, so not being able to see it or recognize or have an awareness of where it runs through your life. So just amplifying this for you, because one of our greatest, most powerful tools is the tool of awareness. Once we're aware of something, then we can move to release those things more easily, more quickly. This is not to relieve you of responsibility, okay, or cast blame outside of you. It's simply to recognize this distortion so you can more easily confirm the removal of it when it shows up. So from here, you're going to imagine your cells, and deep within your cells, at the DNA level, Yeah. So what we're doing here is we're starting to release this distortion pattern from this very deep level. So I'm going to be quiet for a few minutes, right? Good. Bringing your attention now, please, to the hollow of your throat and the center of your heart space, in addition to the center of your solar plexus, which is between your belly button and the base of your sternum. This is the distortion pattern of sacrifice of self. Okay? So giving up or sacrificing self for something or someone or an emotion or whatever it is. So releasing this pattern. Good. And keeping your attention in those three spots, releasing this distortion pattern of low self-worth or non-deserving of having it all. You have to choose because you're not worthy of having it all. So let's release this. Good. Bringing your attention now, please, to your xiphoid process and about 3 inches or 7 centimeters directly beneath it, clearing out, resetting, and integrating the pain body. Good. This brings us to the end of this session. I look forward to working with you on the next GFC. These GFCs help people release distortion patterns. It's my sincere hope that you benefit profoundly from this series, which is why I spend so much of my personal resources creating these as my gift to the world. If a GFC topic resonates with you, often more work that can be provided in this one GFC is needed to really clear or loosen deeply held distortion patterns in areas that are sticky. Because these patterns are like layers of an onion, usually there are multiple layers to individual topics. Depending on how much of a challenge this topic is for you, it may make sense for you to go deeper than what this session allows. If you feel this is the case for you, please visit sphericalluminosity.com for more targeted support.